Wanna experience some hardcore prawn? You're listening to Hot Wampa.
Okay then, Hot Wampa episode 33. It's a case of frawns and prawns for this one, isn't it?
It is, yeah, we got everything. And we're not being shellfish.
No, a bit of a fusion cocktail, this one. Not too much to discuss in housekeeping. Good download figures on the last episode.
Yeah.
I know that you boosted it through Facebook, and that was the direct post back to the Libsyn blog.
That's right, yeah.
I haven't checked the actual download figures from the Libsyn blog, but last night I was on my own iTunes doing a bit of maintenance on there. And I looked on the bit where our podcast is listed on there. And in the bars going across for the most recent episode, for 32, it's quite popular. I don't have any actual figures, but what I think is good about that is it shows that despite the fact we were sharing and promoting it direct through to our feed provider, Libsyn, people have seen that, but they've also picked up the link and gone to iTunes, because iTunes popularity bar obviously only records what's downloaded from there.
Right.
So it's nice to think that we've promoted it in one place, and it's had a knock-on effect of it being taken in others as well, not just that one source.
Oh, that's great.
So great figures. I don't know. I mean, we did get a lot of likes on it.
We did. I mean, when you look at the news, obviously sad news with Kenny Baker passing, but that kind of thing sometimes has a knock-on effect, doesn't it? Because people want to read about him, you know, and people want to listen to probably what other podcasts have got to say. And, you know, we were in that position where hopefully people have continued listening to us from there.
Now, it got quite a good response as well in sub-Saharan Africa, I believe, didn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, I'm still playing about with the audience participation on Facebook, and Dave did warn me to not go to sort of South Africa, really, because...
Well, no, it's not something in South Africa. I think the more countries that you include in that, and you go quite a broad spectrum, one thing I've noticed with the boost is it tends to then focus on one geographic region or country as opposed to all the other terms.
You're right, and... What we found is a lot of names seem like made up names, don't they? They don't really seem like real people. So, but at least somebody hopefully has gone there from the Facebook and looked into our promotion. I mean, we looked at a lot of, we listened to podcasts, we looked at a lot of YouTube channels about boosting posts, didn't we, online? And it's a grey area. Nobody really knows, do they? If it's successful or not. Some people say don't do it. Some people say do it. Don't they?
Yeah, it seems so many different stories and so many different angles coming at that. I think sometimes it's, as much as anything, it's being fortunate as being lucky.
Yeah.
That you get. I mean, we've been noticed and picked up before at times when we hadn't realised we had, like with Hal Dace, Miss Weisenheimer and the aliens. They'd come across us from somewhere.
Yeah.
So people do pick us up out there in the cyber world sort of thing, but we don't. Like you say, it's not an exact science, that promotion, is it?
No.
So it's, but as we seem to have a certain amount of followers, and we assume some of these downloads have come from sort of sub-Saharan Africa, that's kind of influenced where we're going on showcases.
It has, really, yeah.
With District 9.
Yeah.
So we've got that coming up. Not quite as organised as I'd usually be. I'd normally pre-record the plot synopsis, but I haven't done it this week. I've been a bit short on time. Good and bad. Some of the Afrikaans and tribal names and stuff on that, I think is going to be a right nightmare, me getting my tongue around those and pronouncing them correctly. So
there's a lot of clicks, isn't there? A lot of clicks and ticks and the sort of Afrikaans language. And the Maasai language as well. So.
Yeah, I think I could probably manage those. It's the Germanic words that I'm going to struggle with.
Oh, right, okay.
The sort of Dutch-influenced Germanic words in Afrikaans. But, yeah, so if I butcher any names or terms or anything in that, my apologies in advance, not my intention. But I think we might as well move on with the episode, haven't we? Really?
Yeah. Well, should we get on to Star Wars news?
Star Wars, let's do it. Okay, at the moment, the Star Wars Lego app is down for maintenance. At the moment, I noted this on the 2nd and 3rd of September 2016. If you try to go through it, you'll get a broken link. Basically, a minifigure stood there holding two cables together. Quite inventive. The reason for this being the addition of upcoming sets that focus on Rogue One, so I guess they're adding that to that app and to that link. LEGO has pulled back the curtain on the official Rogue One and Star Wars story sets we all knew had to be coming, and as usual, details of the sets reveal some very minor imaginary tech spoilers from the film, which is set to premiere December the 16th. The sets include 3 large characters from the movie as well as 5 vehicle kits that come with minifig versions of the heroes and villains. Said vehicles include some interesting retro takes on old favourite designs like the X-Wing, TIE Fighter and Imperial Shuttle, which makes sense given that this film takes place before the events of the original movie series. All the sets go on sale on the 30th of September. There's a bit of a breakdown here of all the sets along with a description provided by LEGO and their retail cost. They've got an Imperial Death Trooper figure, which I think is like a larger figure.
Okay.
Obviously he has functions. He retails for $24.99. I don't know what that is in sterling.
It'll probably end up at £20 regardless, won't it? Something like that. $19.99, something like that.
Our favourite droid, K2SO, once an Imperial security droid, so that's telling us a bit about his history there, is now ready to fight for the Rebel Alliance. Build the droid, push the buttons aside to swing each arm or push it straight to swing both at the same time. He's $24.99 in terms of dollars. Sergeant Jin Urso, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. We've got a rank.
We've got a rank, a non-commissioned rank, an enlisted rank, a sergeant. It's an NCO, a non-commissioned officer. People have talked about her being the leader of the mission. Obviously, Captain Cassian Anders is the leader of this mission. That's an officer rank. This tough rebel soldier has everything she needs to take on the Empire. And then it just goes on to the technical details about the actual toy or the model as well. So we know now that she's a sergeant. Krennic's Imperial Shuttle. When a tough transport ship is needed, Krennic's Imperial Shuttle is the perfect choice. Put them in the pilot seat, open up the thick armour plate and seat the Death Troopers. Lower the ramp and check the blasters are secured, etc, etc. So we've got a model there of Krennic's own shuttle, which is slightly different to the standard Imperial Shuttle.
Yeah.
That sort of dark colours. It's more sort of stealth looking, I think. They're sort of angular shapes.
Is that the one we saw at the celebration?
Yes, I believe it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think of it being sort of angular and those dark blacks and greys, more of a sort of stealth look to
yeah,
it.
it's a nice looking ship, that.
Yeah. The Rebel U-Wing fighter.
Right.
So they are classing it as a fighter. We thought of it more as a sort of utility or transport vehicle, but they are calling it a fighter.
It looks quite important in the trailers that we've seen, doesn't it? So
yeah, sort of almost like a sort of landing ship or something that's been used as in a transport ship. The TIE Striker.
Right.
We'll learn a bit more about that. Prepare for launch with the amazing TIE Striker, the Empire's atmospheric patrol fighter. So it sounds more like a sort of snowspeeder type vehicle that's, they're using it to patrol within a planet's atmosphere, or a cloud car type vehicle as opposed to a space-going fighter. It also has a cargo area in the rear of it, so whether that will feature in the film in some way. A version of the AT-ST Walker and the Imperial Assault Hover Tank. I guess that's the vehicle we've seen in some of the clips of stormtroopers walking along escorting it in like a crowded urban environment
with
around that.
Rebel prisoners, resistance prisoners.
Yeah, tough urban patrol vehicle, they're calling it here. Helps Shurak battle the Imperial Assault Hover Tank as it patrols the streets. So, yeah, play out your own mini urban battles. So that suggests to me it's a bit like a sort of Saracen armoured car from Northern Ireland, or a sort of snatch Land Rover. It's sort of a militia policing vehicle for those urban environments. So I like it when LEGO release stuff. I think we did this with The Force Awakens when we knew about Kanji Club in advance simply because they'd named a minifigure a Kanji Club gang member. There's always these little spoilers that you can extrapolate from what they've released. Prices, I mean, this is all in US dollars because I've pulled this off from the US website. It's like the TIE Striker, $69.99 in US dollars. I mean, I don't know what that would be in the UK. We'll get those prices ramped up. We always do, don't we?
Yeah.
We always seem to pay for it. So that's what we've got on that. A few little interesting snippets we can pull out of that.
Any of those that you'd like to purchase? Because I know you got the Imperial Shuttle recently, didn't you, when you went to Legoland?
Yeah, I've got all sorts of bits. That was 70 quid. I don't know what that'd be in America. Probably a fiver or something like that. But it's always ramped up for us. But yeah, so those sets will be coming out at the end of the month from the looks of it for fans of Rogue One and fans of Lego that want to go and collect them. And like I said, we can take those little movie spoilers out of there. Jyn Erso is ranked as a sergeant, etc, etc. We know the Alan Tudyk's droid character is former Imperial droid who's come over to the good side, and all these other things. We know the TIE Striker is like an atmospheric vehicle as opposed to a space-going vehicle. There's all sorts of little things we can pull out of that.
And the return of the ATST, so...
Yeah, I think that's just more or less the same as what was in the original trilogy. I mean, we know there's a version of the AT-AT in this film, aren't we? Like the cargo-carrying AT-AT. Whether we'll be seeing models coming out on those sort of closer to Christmas or after Christmas or something like that, who knows?
Well, Lego is always in the top sort of 5 for sales at Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's good that they're getting these things out there early before the film's release, get people interested.
Oh, indeed. And like I said, I mean, people watch and read these things all the time, don't they?
Yeah.
Do you ever see a documentary about the actual factory in Denmark?
No.
And they showed you the R&D bit where they basically have guys in there that make up the new kits. They get given a concept, make this a load of bricks, and they have to build it up and submit it. And obviously, whichever one is the best is the one that becomes the model you then go and buy in the stores. I know the documentary then, the film crew was only allowed to go to certain places. And in this R&D bit where this building goes on, they've got like these mechanical shutters on the outside, and they walked past it with a camera. And the second they did, some big brother or eagle eye was watching them, and all these shutters automatically went across all the windows, so nobody could actually look in or peer in. They're so secretive in the way they do things.
Can you imagine a job interview at Lego? I bet they just give you a load of blocks, and you go to a room, and whoever constructs the best thing sort of gets the job or something like that.
Oh, that'd be a great pursuit. Yeah. That'd be a great job.
You got 20 minutes.
Yeah. You got 20 minutes to knock up Wembley Stadium or something like that. Yeah. That's really all I've personally got on the Star Wars line. I mean, what have you brought to the party here this
week? We talked about briefly Enter Thrawn. So he's a major character. He's Grand Admiral Thrawn, isn't he?
This is for season 3 of Star Wars Rebels.
That's correct. Yes, and I mean, you'll know a bit more about his history. He was introduced in a novel, wasn't he?
It was Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy. I can't remember. Was it Heir to the Empire?
That's when he first appeared.
I can't remember what the second one's called. Maybe that evening is it? The Heir to the Empire. The last one was called, I think, The Last Command. But there was a Thrawn trilogy of books written around the sort of mid to early 90s by Timothy Zahn, and that was really the sort of re-emergence of Star Wars came with that trilogy of books. There was a lot of novels and stuff coming from Bantam Publishing on Star Wars, and really that's kind of the birth of the expanded universe. A lot of characters that went on to become very popular in the expanded universe, like Mara Jade and so forth, all came from this set of novels.
And this guy, you find him a lot on the internet, even when there weren't any Star Wars news. I mean, he was prominent. People really like this character. So.
He's a bit of a fan favourite, yeah. He was a race called the Chiss.
That's it, yeah.
Which were basically like a blue-skinned but red-eyed humanoid race that were out there in the galaxy, but nobody really knew much about them. And he came into the Empire's ranks from these outer fringes. I mean, there's a whole history and backstory you can look up for Thrawn on Wikipedia or any of those sorts of sites.
So was he originally canon? Like, was he originally part of Star Wars material, or was he like introduced for the expanded universe and became a fan favourite, and now they've incorporated him? Or
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pick and choosing, I think, with what they're doing with Star Wars here. I mean, what they want to make canon, they'll make canon. Some parts of the expanded universe have been dropped. I do have a degree of sympathy for Star Wars fans, because for a long time the stuff in the expanded universe was all they had to go on, and a lot of that was kind of regarded as canon. But because there was such a vacuum of official Star Wars, I think that expanded universe, it grew. People made video games, they wrote books, etc., and they tried to tie them all together. And on the whole, they invested in that and did quite a good job of doing that. There was a consistency, a continuality throughout the entire expanded universe. And I think it probably peeved a lot of people when they came back into making official films and that perhaps contradicted or dropped parts of that expanded universe, because it got to be quite a big thing, and I think for a lot of people they got quite invested in the expanded universe. Thrawn is an expanded universe character, and obviously he's officially canon if he's coming into Rebels now, which is Disney Lucasfilm. But then there's other parts of the expanded universe, like the character of Wedge Antilles. In some of the old sort of Dark Horse graphic novels and stuff like that on Star Wars that I used to use, they went a bit into Wedge's backstory, and he had been an orphan. His parents had owned a refuelling station in orbit around Corellia, and this refuelling station had been attacked by pirates, and his parents had been killed in that attack. and he'd managed to escape in a ship and had set up himself as a smuggler and initially started smuggling arms and goods to the rebels, and then eventually came over and became a fully fledged rebel and became a fighter pilot. If you look in the new trailer for season 3 of Star Wars Rebels, Wedge is an Imperial pilot that's defecting to the rebellion. So they've kind of dropped that part of the EU, if you will, but brought Thrawn in from the EU. So they are very much picking and choosing and dismissing some of the stuff that's out there and incorporating some of the stuff that's out there. But I have seen the trailer for season 3 of Rebels, and the visual palette on it looks quite different to what I've seen of the first seasons of Rebels. I've only seen all of season 1. I've not seen any of season 2. I'm waiting for Disney to broadcast it again so I can Sky Plus it and watch it when I want to. I'm not going to pay for it. Damn that. I would do that for my subscription. But what I've noticed in season 3 is the visual palette is different. A lot of the characters in Rebels are quite young, and it looks to me like they've deliberately aged some of the characters, so it reflects them being 2 or 3 years older.
Okay.
So they're not keeping the same sort of visual palette. They're letting this cast, if you will, of characters develop as it goes on.
That's good. That doesn't often happen in sort of animated features, does it?
No, I mean, how long has Bart Simpson been the same age?
Yeah.
At least 20, 30. He should be middle-aged by now,
Yeah,
surely.
it should be, yeah.
Knocking on a bit.
Well, I don't know. How old is Bart Simpson, like, in real terms? Because when we were at school, the Simpsons were about, weren't they?
Yeah, just starting to come to prominence,
Yeah,
weren't
the
they?
Tracy Ullman show. Do the Bartman and all stuff like that.
That's right, yeah,
Wow.
Tracy Ullman. Wow, God, we're getting old now.
Well, back to Thrawn. Interestingly, he's voiced by Lars Mikkelsen in this series, and he is the older brother of Mads Mikkelsen. So, standing at 6'3", he's certainly got a large character to get in a sound booth and to record Thrawn's voice. But that's quite an interesting link between Rogue One and Rebels, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think these things tend to tie up as much as they can do. And another thing I've noticed about the trailer as well, they show Thrawn as having an appreciation of cultures and art and stuff, and that's how he understands his enemies, if you will. That's what gives him his insight and informs his tactical decisions in battle. And that's also something that's transferred from the EU, because in the EU he had his own Star Destroyer, like his flagship. And in his quarters he had examples of alien artefacts and alien art on the walls, and when he went to war with a race on behalf of the Empire, he would study that race's art to give him his insights for his tactical decisions. Well, it looks very much like they're carrying that from the EU novels and putting it into Rebels as well.
Okay.
As to why he's such an effective commander. He's more of a thinking commander instead of a sort of totalitarian despot. There's an intelligence to Thrawn. And I think for the Rebels, he's probably going to be quite a handful.
Well, seemingly so, and I hope they do him justice, because there's a lot of fans out there and looking forward to that, I think.
Yeah, well, in the expanded universe, I mean, the Thrawn novels were set after Return of the Jedi. I mean, Rebels obviously is set pre A New Hope, so obviously he's a factor in that in the Star Wars storyline for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Whether they'll dismiss the expanded universe by killing him off or keeping him going as a popular character, who knows? Yeah.
Well, let's look forward to that. Hopefully, listeners are going to watch that and give us some feedback on it. So.
Yeah.
I've got new astromech. You probably saw this, Dave, during the week.
The dark coloured one.
Yeah, C2B5 from Rogue One. I noted he was like the Vader of astromechs because he's got a nice sort of dark and grey sort of colouring.
Do you think as a character he'll be dark, or he'll just be a generic droid?
I think it'll be just a generic droid, probably. I don't know if he have a big say in the story himself. We haven't really seen the droid in the trailers or anything, have we?
No.
So it could be just sort of buzzing about on some ship.
Sort of a background character.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be.
But after what we saw at the Star Wars Celebration, these astromech droids come on leaps and bounds in the last few decades, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I think the Empire did have sort of dark-coloured R2 unit astromechs in the original trilogy, but it's kind of in the deleted scenes and it's been cut. But there are other deleted scenes to the original trilogy out there on YouTube if you look, and you can actually see them in a few scenes. I think there's a scene, I don't know which film it's taken from, where Vader's walking down a corridor and he actually walks past a dark-coloured astromech going past it in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
While we're talking about astromechs and R2s, I am trying to get hold of the R2 Builders Club to see if we can get a bit of an interview with them. But they are being a bit elusive to me at the moment. They're taking messages, they're just not replying, so I don't know quite what's going on there.
Probably busy building, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they are in busy lives and that, but we'll persist with that. Because I think if we can get a conversation or an interview with them, that might be quite an interesting one to follow up.
Yeah, with the process of how they go about it. Where do they begin, building such a thing? Yeah, definitely. I've got some other news that also was on our Facebook page. A New Hope's clumsy stormtrooper, the guy who bangs his head in A New Hope.
Yeah.
Michael Leader, he's unfortunately died. He's also famous for roles in the EastEnders and Doctor Who, but he'll always be remembered. I even remember it on It'll Be Alright on the Night or something like that, where they showed the clip of A New Hope where this stormtrooper bangs his head on a beam, and it's still in there now, isn't it? They kept it in there. So
yeah, they didn't cut that scene. That's the thing. I guess these films 30, 40 years old, it's going to start happening, isn't it?
Yeah.
What was a sad passing to Kenny Baker? None of us last forever.
And George Lucas even said about Jango Fett that, because of the helmet, it'd be funny if he was kind of a bit more clumsy because he couldn't actually see what he was doing all the time. So George Lucas tried to incorporate that. Although I don't remember Jango Fett being particularly clumsy in the film.
No, I got the feeling of him being quite a ruthless and efficient type of soldier. Someone who was very competent, and that he goes out like a bit of a punk when Mace Windu sorts him out and beheads him. But
yeah, I mean, beheading in Star Wars it was a bit of a shocker when that happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that graphic though, is it? I mean, because it's just
there's no blood
coming off and rolling off, and his own son Boba Fett then picks up and examines that helmet, and I think that's a nice little nod. I mean, there's not a lot of great moments from Attack of the Clones, but I think that's one little bit we can be a bit nostalgic about that they put that in there. But yeah.
Last bit I picked up. Lots of fan theories about Rey at the moment, saying that maybe she's the actual villain of the piece, and she's going to grow into a more of a darker character. If you check the original Force Awakens poster, we can clearly see her on the Kylo Ren side of the poster, which suggests that if you have bad and good on that poster. There's a few theories anyway that her arc is going to take her more towards the dark side. But as we saw in Empire Strikes Back, I mean, Luke had his own issues, didn't he? Like sort of, contemplating where to go. So.
But he never really stepped over to the dark side, did he?
No.
I think he was put in situations where he realised he could be drawn over, or that was the intention of Vader, but that he kind of had to see those situations through regardless. I don't know. I mean, you can go onto a lot of video blogs on YouTube and blogging sites all over the internet and different entertainment sites. And there's a lot of rife speculation, I think, about what direction these characters are all going to be going in. I think it's just an absence of facts because we don't know. We haven't seen the film ourselves. I think a lot of the time when people read into it, what they read into it tends to be a lot more complicated than what we end up with.
Yeah, that's true.
It's speculation. It's great fun to have it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some great video blogs and stuff when they sort of present a case for that argument or that theory, and you have to sort of look at it and think, well, yeah, I mean, that's quite a valid argument. It could, from what we've got so far, and taking that speculation, go off in that direction. But it is still just that, it's speculation. And I think sometimes perhaps people do overthink a little bit.
Well, it's interesting now that we're kind of in the eye of the storm of Star Wars. There's so much Star Wars around us. When like you were talking about the desert years, when there weren't any Star Wars films, people created these own, the expanded universes.
And it wasn't expanded universe, it was a big entity.
Yeah.
I think from what we've seen of The Force Awakens, the conflict of light and dark, we're going to see for episode 8 is going to be more around Kylo Ren.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be the potential for either his redemption or him to slip further over to the dark side, and sort of that's why we've got Snoke. There is a thing going around on the internet, I haven't got the exact links at the moment, where it's supposed to be a script leak from episode 8. Again, it's from the internet, take it or leave it, it could be entirely falsified. But this script leak speculates that Luke enters some sort of temple or building or base where he encounters Snoke. And
that kind of fits in with the sets that we've seen, doesn't it?
Yeah, he has to confront Snoke, and he has quite a bit of dialogue with Snoke. And there's sort of hints and allusions as to who might be dark side, who might be whose father, who might be whose relative, etc., in that dialogue. I'm not going to quote it. I mean, I don't have the notes off the top of my head anyway. It is out there, but again, like so much of the other speculation that's out there, take it or leave it. But until I see episode 8, I'm not going to follow up on what anyone says.
You're absolutely right, though. These films are family films for kids, etc. as well. And I think The Force Awakens was quite a straightforward story in many respects. There weren't too much sort of intrigue and conflict in the background. It was, pretty much straight up.
But the characters were good.
Yeah.
People like Finn, we got to see that sort of human side of him as why he made his decision and going on the run. It had these sort of characters that you could get on side with and sort of, wish them through the film.
Yeah.
But the story wasn't, like you say, it wasn't over complex, no. I don't think.
And lots of funny moments as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's all I have for Star Wars news at the moment. Obviously, any more links we get, any more snippets of news, they'll be put on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. Do you have any more, Dave, on Star Wars?
Nothing on Star Wars. I'll probably think of more as we get going. That's normally the way. Should we have a look at Showcase?
Let's do it.
This is Almudena from Spain, and I really like Hot Wampa. It's very interesting, and every episode you can find something new. I really like it.
Okay, Showcase, District 9. It's a 2009 science fiction thriller film directed by Neill Blomkamp, written by Blomkamp and Terry Tatchell, and produced by Peter Jackson and Carolyn Cunningham. The film stars Sharlto Copley, Jason Cope and David James. The film won the 2010 Saturn Award for Best International Film presented by the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy and Horror Films, and was nominated for 4 Academy Awards in 2009. Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Visual Effects and Best Editing. It is a co-production of New Zealand, United States and South Africa. The story, adapted from Alive in Joburg, a 2005 short film, directed by Blomkamp and produced by Copley and Simon Hansen, depicts humanity, xenophobia and social segregation. The title and premise of District 9 were inspired by events in District 6, Cape Town during the apartheid era. The film was produced for US $30 million and shot on location in Chowelio or something like that, Soweto, presenting fictional interviews, news footage and video from surveillance cameras in a found footage format. A viral marketing campaign began in 2008 at the San Diego Comic-Con, while the theatrical trailer appeared in July 2009. Released by TriStar Pictures, the film opened on August 14, 2009 in North America and earned US $37 million in its opening weekend. In an alternate 1982, an alien ship inexplicably stops over Johannesburg. When investigation teams enter the ship, they discover a population of sick and malnourished extraterrestrials who become nicknamed Prawns. The South African government confines the aliens to District 9, a government camp that is located outside of Johannesburg. 28 years later, in 2010, following periodic conflict between the aliens and the locals living near District 9, the government hires private military company Multinational United, or MNU, to relocate the aliens to a new internment. Vickers van der Meer, who's played by Sharlto Copley, an Afrikaner bureaucrat, is appointed by Piet Schmidt, an MNU executive, and his father-in-law to lead the relocation. Meanwhile, 3 aliens, Christopher Johnson, played by Jason Cope, his son and a friend scavenge pieces of their technology from which they distill a fluid of their native provenance and store it in a small canister. Vickers confiscates the canister from the shack of Christopher's friend, but accidentally sprays some of the fluid onto his face. Christopher's friend is subsequently killed by Cubus Venter, played by David James, a sadistic mercenary soldier employed by MNU. Under the fluid's influence, Vickers' body, starting with his injured left arm, begins to deteriorate and become alien tissue. He is immediately detained and transported to MNU headquarters for experimentation, where it's discovered that Vickers' chimeric DNA grants him the ability to use alien weapons, which are biologically restricted to work for alien users only. Realising the potential fortune to be made from Vickers' tissue in its current state, Schmidt and his scientists decide to vivisect Vickers, but he overpowers them and escapes the facility. Schmidt orders Venter and his men to hunt Vickers down, while a smear story is published that claims Vickers has been engaging in sexual activity with aliens and is a fugitive infected by an alien sexual transmitted disease. Everyone believes the story, even for a time Vickers' wife and Schmidt's daughter, Tanya, played by Vanessa Hayward. Vickers finds refuge in District 9 and stumbles into Christopher's shack, where he learns that Christopher is hiding the lost command module of their spacecraft underground. Christopher discloses that the fluid in the canister would allow him to reactivate the command module and the dormant mothership, in which he claims he can reverse Vickers' mutation. To recover the canister from MNU headquarters, Vickers obtains alien weapons from superstitious Nigerian arms dealer Obasanjo, I think that is, oh God knows, Eugene whatever, and his gang. Then he and Christopher attack the MNU officers, retrieve the canister and flee to District 9 with MNU forces in pursuit. Appalled by the illegal experiments on his fellow aliens at MNU headquarters, Christopher decides to get help before curing Vickers, which will take 3 years, as he will need to use as much fluid as possible in order to reach his destination and get help. Frustrated, Vickers knocks out Christopher and attempts to fly the command module to the mothership, but is almost immediately shot down by Venter and his men. They capture Vickers and Christopher, but Obasanjo's gang intervene and seize Vickers, acting on Obasanjo's belief that eating Vickers' transformed arm will enable him to use alien weaponry. Obasanjo's base is then attacked by MNU. In the command module, Christopher's son remotely activates the mothership and an alien mechanised battlesuit in Obasanjo's base, which kills Obasanjo and his men. Vickers takes control of the battlesuit and rescues Christopher, who promises to return in 3 years with a cure. Vickers kills all the attacking soldiers before Venters cripples the suit, which ejects Vickers. As he corners Vickers, a group of aliens kill Venter by tearing him apart. The command module with Christopher and his son is lifted into the mothership, which they use to leave Earth, and Johannesburg's residents celebrate its departure. A series of interviews and news broadcasts are shown speculating about Vickers' whereabouts and the potential return of Christopher and the spacecraft, and what it may entail. MNU's illegal experiments are exposed by Vickers' friend and assistant Fundawaza, and District 9 is demolished, and the aliens are subsequently interned to the larger District 10. Tanya finds a metal flower on her doorstep, giving her hope that Vickers is still alive. The final scene shows a fully transformed Vickers in a junkyard, fashioning a similar type of metal flower.
Yeah, that's a great synopsis.
That is District 9 in a nutshell.
Yeah.
What do you think? I know when we talked about it, you've got a few sort of issues with the transformation thing with the eye and everything.
Yeah, I found it very uneasy to watch, very queasy and kind of...
Now, you surprised me when you said that, because I know you're a bit of a fan of the horror genre.
I am, yeah.
So a bit of gore in a movie or a bit of something that's, visually stands out like that, you're no stranger to.
I think because this one seems so realistic, because we bought into it. And I think, at the beginning, Vickers, you think he's a bit of an idiot. He's a bumbling admin guy who's going around, looking for different things in the District 9 area. But then, when you look at the human element and the family element and how they try to set him up, you really don't want him to change. You want him to, so it's heart-wrenching when it's happening to him.
Yeah, I think early on in District 9 you start to develop a degree of sympathy for the character of Vickers.
Yeah.
I don't think you get the impression that he's necessarily a bad person, but he is, like you say, he's a stumbling bureaucrat, but one that obviously wants to toe the company line and advance himself in the company. His own father-in-law is a director with the company, and he obviously carries out those instructions. He's quite formal and what have you, going around trying to relocate the prawns from District 9, going around there, they've got to sign the paperwork and everything. And initially, when he realises he's going through the transformation, and he then becomes an asset to MNU and a disposable asset that they want to exploit him and vivisect him, then he's in survival mode. He's not that company man anymore. He's out there trying to get away from the company, at the same time using the prawn character of Christopher to try and offer him hope, to offer him some sort of cure. So at that stage he's very self-centred. By the end of the film, he's a very compassionate individual. I think the irony about the character of Vickers is the less human he becomes, the more humane he becomes.
Yeah.
The picture gets bigger for Vickers as he goes through the film. And you see him going from that formal the bureaucrat, the company man, through to somebody who's actually got a lot of sympathy for the prawn race and is trying to actually help this individual and his son to get away.
Yeah.
And Vickers, I think he's a character we grow with and we follow him. And like you say, to start with, he's an inoffensive bumbling bureaucrat. By the end of it, you're really on side with him and have a degree of sympathy for him. And you don't want him to transform into a prawn. You want him to have some sort of cure, or at least remain human and go back to his normal life. But that normal life is closed off to him.
That's right. That's right.
Even if he wasn't a prawn, he couldn't go back.
No. And perhaps that's the trap, isn't it? You realise that, once he's like his father-in-law, they're going to use him for experiments, things like that. You realise that he's never going to be able to live a normal life again,
No.
So that's that's the sad moment. And I think just the unease of the transformation,
Yeah, I mean, Vickers himself has his issues. Well, I think it's funny what you say about the eye thing being a little bit disturbing, and I think of the scene of the eye when he's broken out of that exo battlesuit thing, and his Venter's being torn from limb to limb, and he's looking up in the sky, and he sees the mothership starts to become active and move off, and he realises in that state that he's been successful in getting Christopher and his son away. And I think that's the most stunning shot of that eye. You see him lying on the ground and he's looking up at the sky, and you see his one human eye and the one alien eye. And it is I suppose it's quite graphic. It's well done, and it is a bit of a shock moment. I don't find that so shocking. I find other parts of his transformation shocking, like the parts where he starts to pull his fingernails out in the bathroom, or he starts to pull his own molars out of his mouth and stuff like that. I find that more disturbing, despite the fact that's a lesser effect than seeing his eye.
That is a bit of a trope, isn't it? Pulling the teeth out. Like if you think of the Fly and other films like that.
Or even in Moon, when the clones are starting to deteriorate, and the teeth fall out and the nails fall out, and they sort of rapidly age all of a sudden, don't they?
The one thing we have to say about this film is fantastically done. The effects, the mockumentary style, it's just a whole new level that Neill Blomkamp managed to achieve with this.
That's very stunning about this. I mean, we've talked about... I mean, I know it's associated with the name of Peter Jackson, but I think that's more a named association to help promote the film and to get the film out there and give it that credibility. But with a relatively unknown cast, and I'd never heard of Blomkamp before this.
No.
And yet the production values on this, and this is so interesting, seems so great. And it wasn't a massive budget.
No.
30 million. By today's, it's peanuts. But it, like you say, it looks so good. The prawns, the aliens, they are all such characters. I like the sort of mockumentary news footage from different sort of media companies around the world. And there's a scene, I think, when a news reporter lady is talking into a microphone, and in the background there's like a skip there of various bits of rubbish piled up in the skip, and you can see one of the prawn aliens. He's sort of picking out items from the skip. You're looking at it, chucking it over his shoulders. There's such a character to these CGI characters. It's done really well. Or when Vickers goes to evict Christopher, and Christopher's son, he throws Christopher's son a sweetie. You go, there you go, sweetie, from the sweetie man. I'm not going to try and butcher a South African or Afrikaans accent because it's going to sound terrible. But that's a sort of dialect, and his son picks it up and chucks it back at him and hits him on the forehead and all the rest of it.
Perfect.
These aliens have got such a character to them.
And I think the way they've set the film, like, because the spacecraft arrived in 1982, it's not so amazing anymore to the human race, is it? It's like, they arrived, they're still here. Bloody hell, they're still here. It's kind of like that, isn't it? People are just a bit blasé about it. Yeah, there's an alien spacecraft over South Africa. It's not so shocking, because they've been there so long.
Refreshing that it's South Africa, I think, and not Los Angeles or New York or London or any of the world's, Johannesburg. It's a city. We don't talk about Johannesburg in a way we would talk about Paris, London, Moscow, New York, what have you, do we? We talk about it in a slightly different sense. I mean, I think we think back to South Africa's troubled history and the apartheid era and stuff, because to us, watching the news in the 1980s and stuff, that's how it was always referred to as us. I think perhaps in our own mind subconsciously we think of it in that way still, because we make names like Durban and so on, townships, Soweto, we associate it with that in our own mind. And I think it's refreshing. I think it's not an accident. I mean, I believe Neill Blomkamp is South African, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
And the cast and a lot of the crew are. It's no accident. I think that it's set over Johannesburg, and it makes a lot of those historical parallels with the apartheid era in terms of townships and districts and a segregation and a xenophobia. I think District 9 it's not scared to get its hand dirty in tackling the subject of xenophobia and racism and prejudice. It can be quite an ugly film. The sort of vitriol in the character of Vickers' voice when he uses the term prawn, and how accepted that's become as a term to people to use the term prawn, a term that we could be regarded as derogatory. And I always feel like with him, the dialect stops short of him literally saying to an alien, look, just get out of my country. That's how I think intense District 9 portrays xenophobia. It's not a racist film, and it's not an anti-racist film. What I think District 9 does is not scared to look at the issue on what could be quite a sensitive issue. But I really feel like they go into depth on that, and they're not scared to get their hands dirty.
And in today's current climate, I think it's quite relevant as well, you know, with refugees and, you know, Syrians, things like that. You know, in today's society, I think if you watch this film, you can see parallels, you know, to migration, you know, and refugees, asylum seekers, and it still is very relevant today, you know, like 7 years after its release.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen comparisons online, reading about it in various forum posts and stuff, where people have made the association with the old Alien Nation film and series, and I don't feel that. I think in Alien Nation there were episodes in that where the difference, the xenophobia, the prejudice and perceived benefits of being one part of one group or another group, it did play on that in a few episodes, but on the whole it never really felt to me like it was that disharmonious. The whole thing felt a lot more integrated. I mean I call the aliens in Alien Nation coneheads, whatever you want to call them, but I believe one of them was a police officer, and that he would be focused as the attaché in alien issues or alien crime and stuff. Whereas on District 9, I think it really does keep that segregation in place. It draws a line and a parallel. And the aliens in District 9 aren't coming out and getting the better jobs. The aliens in District 9 aren't a part of mainstream society. They are segregated. They are different. It's not such an integration. So I think that comparison with Alien Nation is a million miles away.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the aliens in District 9 are so different to humans.
Yeah.
How could they really function in a human society? You know, what could they offer? You know, us. You know, what jobs could they do? How could they assimilate? And that's the problem, because they're so different. I mean, that's why they've been segregated.
But are they? Well, I mean, they've been here for 30 years. The main alien protagonist's name in here is Christopher, which is a human name. It's an anglicised biblical name.
Yeah. It's
not an alien name, is it?
No.
He's wearing a degree of clothes. He's got clutter and crap around his shack. It's not much different to this spare room, really. You know, there's a sense of humour to him. He's obviously intelligent. He's capable of scavenging for a living and this, that and the other. And I believe in the scene where they're trying to evict him and get him to sign the forms, that the character of Vickers turns around to one of the MNU soldiers and said, this one's a bit sharper.
Yeah.
That they could contribute to a society. There could be jobs that they could do. There could be a parity. But because there's this prejudice, or there were early on riots because these guys put it basically into internment or townships, shanty towns, refugee camps, however you want to classify that, there's always this kind of unrest and background. You take any group of people, it doesn't matter who they are or where they come from or any race, you put them in an environment where they're interned basically in a fence camp, where they're crowded, where provisions and the ability for them to earn a living and to get those provisions for them and their people is restricted, crime and poverty will become rife because it's an exploitable market.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the fault of the people that are basically refugees and interned like that. To a degree, that's a product of the environment you put them in. You know, and I think District 9 shows that. I feel sympathy towards the prawns. I mean, I almost feel uncomfortable using the term prawns because I think they're worth more than that. It's not that they are bad people. We see degrees of compassion and morality amongst them. It's the circumstances that they've been put into and interned to, which has made this crime environment and this unhealthy and unsanitary environment become prolific and allowed it to flourish.
And it reflects that well. I mean, like the favelas in Rio, you know, these kind of things, these kind of areas, they will set up their own sort of crime families, things like that. It happens, doesn't it?
Black markets.
Yeah.
I mean, we would typically associate that perhaps with drugs, with vice, with prostitution, firearms dealing. I mean, District 9 handles that with these things being addicted to cat food. If there's a black market for cat food, you know, the extortionate prices, sort of Lego prices for cat food in District 9. And it portrays sort of Zimbabwean and Nigerian gangs dealing in this stuff, you know, Afrikaners that aren't from South Africa but from other African countries.
Yeah.
So again, you could perhaps regard that as xenophobic in a way, that the problem isn't internal, that the problem is coming from somewhere else. But there's a lot of different social and moral issues that I think I like District 9, not because it takes a side, but because it's prepared to get its hands dirty in trying to show you that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've got a little review here actually from a regular listener, Stephen Waterhouse. It's quite interesting because his wife's South African.
Okay.
So here we go. Hello Wampas. I'm a big fan of District 9, so I felt the urge to share with you my 2 rands worth. My wife is South African, so this movie was a must-see for us. A South African mainstream movie is a rare thing. Go on, try and name me more than one. The documentary style of District 9 instantly brings you into the world of the lovable goofball Vickers. The poor bloke seems to have the weight of the world on his shoulders. The deeper he gets into the world of the fucking prawns, the more you sympathise. All the way up to the poignant final scene. The ending left me wanting to know what happens next, and is poised tantalisingly for a sequel. However, we are left waiting. We got Chappie instead.
I've got some notes about a potential sequel we can look at in a minute.
The pace, style and story are great, and a political metaphor of modern day South Africa is plain to see. I loved it. It's as good as Sci-Fi gets for me. It moved me enough to pay £1.50 for the Blu-ray. Thanks lads, Stephen Waterhouse.
£1.50?
Yeah, you got it from a bargain bucket somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
District 9 deserves more than to be turning up in some bargain bucket.
Yeah, £1.50.
Makes it sound like if somebody's found the Blu-ray in a skip in District 9 itself.
Yeah, like some alien sort of tossing them over his shoulder.
The prawn characters are going in there.
Yeah.
The prawn name is a bit funny, really. When we think of some sort of aquatic mollusk, don't we? When we say a prawn, we think of something that'd be nice in breadcrumbs or batter and served with chips or something in a basket.
Scampi.
Yeah. The prawn name, I think again, it's even more xenophobic and hateful in that term. I think they're referring to a type of locust or a cricket which is widely regarded as a pest in South Africa.
Right.
And their scientific name for this thing is the so-and-so prawn, and that's what the prawn in this instant is derived from. So it's not just that they're using a less derogatory term for this race, they're using a term for a pest which is actually quite hated. You know, these particular locust or cricket would be regarded in the way that we would regard rats or the Colorado beetle or something. Prawn is a really derogatory term.
Are they edible?
No, I don't know. I guess anything's edible if you prepare it.
Yeah.
Some people fry
I'm going to eat you. That's how you prepare it.
Well, the Nigerian gangs in this, I mean, a lot of them are portrayed as cannibalistic, aren't they? They're trying to hack Vickers' arm off to eat it because they think that will give them powers and stuff. There's a lot of superstition and cultural superstition in District 9. I believe the Nigerians weren't too happy with their portrayal in the film.
I remember you saying that last week or the other week to me, didn't you?
Yeah, the main guys, the leader, the Obasanjo, whatever his name is, I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. I believe there was a complaint made that his name, the character's name, was very close to some former president of Nigeria, and making some sort of association with Nigerians coming into South Africa and this, that, and the other. And like you say, it's still relevant to this day. We could look at political campaigning at the moment in the United States when there's this big debate about Mexicans coming into the country, whether it be legal or illegal to work and
building
and
a wall and all that, you know.
Again, these things kind of come round, don't they?
They do. And I mean, it's interesting with the Nigerians, with the superstition and that, you know, in African countries, Asian countries, like, I don't know, powdered tiger penis, things like that. I mean, when you look at that, if you've got an alien spaceship hovering over a city...
But we know that's rubbish. We know you eat anything like that, it's not going to make absolutely any difference.
I know, as much as eating a tub of Sheba or something like that. But, yeah, and you could see that the Nigerians believing that this magic from the spaceship would probably help them, you know.
But then it's not a magic, though. I mean, we would think of it as a science and a technology, but then we're in a more privileged position. I think one of the things District 9 shows that when certain groups are deprived of a similar standard of living, a similar standard of education, a similar standard of deprived chances of being employed and social mobility, they tend to fall back on simpler things, and throughout history that's when religions and superstitions and faith have filled in that space for them.
Of course, it gives people hope, doesn't it?
It's not rational to the way we think, but like you say, it's hope. It's to them, it's something to live for and a way forward. But yeah, I mean, District 9 is so broad on so many social issues.
What do you think it sort of teaches us about compounds and things like that? And what do you think it tells us how? I mean, because this place has been there many years, it's sort of run down, and people are sort of self-governing.
It's a great set, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the irony that from South Africa's own troubled past and Soweto and places like that we think about, the set was basically already built for them, and all they had to do was put the actors and the CGI characters into that set. I think it's quite accurate. It's very believable. It is familiar. The palette we remember from those news reports from the 1980s and stuff, watching the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah.
It immediately fits into that world. I think that's why we don't find it so far out, and we accept it, because it's a very familiar visual palette to us. It's something we remember from the real world.
And I mean, well, in terms of camps, I mean, Friday Bridge was a prisoner of war camp, wasn't it? Which is near Wisbeach, right? It's not too far from here,
No, there was another prisoner of war camp, I believe, in Ely, up near what was the former RAF hospital that had interned Italian army prisoners in there from the North African campaigns that had been captured during the fighting in North Africa. And you can talk to any of the old locals around here. There's over 80 or 90, and you hear about all sorts of shenanigans with these Italian prisoners when they were taken out onto the land in working parties and this, that and the other. But I think the Second World War palette of internment camps and stuff, we always think of things perhaps like that, or Colditz, or The Great Escape, because for a long time that's what we were fed. And that would be these guys plotting to do their duty to escape and get back to Allied lines. They'd be living in huts, in bunk beds, they'd have blankets, they'd have set meal times, they'd have exercise yards. To a degree they would be allowed to have hobbies, whether that be reading, teaching, woodwork, fashioning clothes, putting on plays and performances. To me it feels very civilised, and whilst it's not luxurious, it's certainly an environment you could manage and live in. There's a degree of respect. The truth to a lot of the Second World War isn't like that in terms of the way that everyone was interned. I think the Germans probably treat our prisoners of war and the American prisoners of war different to people that they treat in the Polish ghettos and the Jews and stuff. And when people, it's another great example of similarity, where people were restricted and interned into an area, and what comes in and goes out of that area was restricted. Again, people would start to starve, people would live in poverty, people would have a shortage of medical care. Survival becomes a main priority for the people restricted in those areas. So things like education and other things that we would take for granted, and then employment, are then deprived to those people the ability to move forward. And I think it's a prime example of how not to treat somebody who's different. There could be, if you're going to get refugees, not those people who were refugees in the Second World War, obviously that was the Nazis, and it was a sick ideology that inspired that. But to a modern parallel with Syrians and stuff, if you're going to start interning these people in camps and stuff, you've got to expect a black market, you've got to expect crime that's rife, because it's the conditions that you're interning them in. It doesn't mean they're bad people, they're perhaps trying to survive in a difficult environment. Perhaps
the closest to us is the jungle in Calais. That
possibly.
That's very prominent at the moment, isn't it, in the news? I've got some other notes. Let's have a look quickly. You might know some of these. Did you see there's a short called Vickers and Charlize? No, it's a short with the two characters. It's available on YouTube. It came out in 2010, so it's like a follow-on sort of thing. What did you say? You had some notes about a sequel or possible sequel.
I have, but I'm going to have to look them up, because there's some things I thought I'd better print out last night just to go back to.
Well, there were around 6 different endings created for this film. So I guess Blomkamp, I haven't seen the Blu-ray if they've got the additional ones on there. After seeing Blomkamp's Halo film, based on the video game series, Peter Jackson offered Blomkamp $30 million to make whatever he wanted, and this is the outcome of that. The language spoken by the aliens was created by rubbing a pumpkin. I don't know how that works. The title of the film is a nod to a real place, as Dave said, and an incident in South African history called District 6, which the government demolished in 1966.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first documentary-style feature film to be nominated for a Best Picture Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
The Prawn's obsession with cat food came from Neill Blomkamp's observations of local people selling cheesy poofs and other snack foods out of 3-foot plastic bags, you know, and it was like looking at this obsession of sort of cheap food that could easily be sold. All the aliens are CGI apart from the ones on the operating tables. This was interesting. The mutilated animal carcasses in the background of many scenes were real and were already in the slums and shacks while filming.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh God! There must be flies and maggots and everything. I know that there's a scene in the film when Vickers and his team goes into a shack where the aliens have basically they lay eggs and their young come from eggs, and the strategy is the young continue to develop inside the eggs, almost like a womb, and obviously they need to be umbilically fed to fuel that development. And basically, what the aliens have is like a cow carcass suspended from the ceiling above a series of eggs with like a series of tubes coming out of the cow carcass into the eggs, and obviously as the cow degrades and rots down it liquefies inside, and that's what's almost intravenously feeding it. And they go in there and they basically blow it up, and you can hear the sort of screams and the popping of the eggs and the embryos in the eggs, and it is quite a gory film, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
But those notes on a potential sequel. On August 1st, 2009, 2 weeks before District 9 was released to cinemas, Neill Blomkamp hinted that he intended to make a sequel if the film was successful enough. During an interview on the Rude Awakening 94.7 high-volt stereo breakfast show, he alluded to it, saying, "There probably will be." Nevertheless, he revealed that his next project is unrelated to the District 9 universe. In an interview with Rotten Tomatoes, Blomkamp stated that he was totally hoping for a follow-up. "I haven't thought of a story yet, but if people want to see another one, I'd love to do it." Blomkamp has posed the possibility of the next movie in the series being a prequel. In an interview with Empire magazine posted on April 28, 2010, Sharlto Copley suggested that a follow-up, while very likely, would be about 2 years away given his and Neill Blomkamp's current commitments. I mean, obviously 2 years away from 2010 to 2012, and we're 4 years past that now.
Well, would Sharlto Copley actually need to be in the film anyway, you know?
Oh, I don't know, really. Do we need a sequel? Is this because people want that happy ending? Do they want him to somehow... Do they want the character of Christopher to come back with a cure in 3 years, like he said he would? And do they want him to turn him back human, for him to go back to his family? The Christopher seems very ambiguous to me. There's the scene, like I said before, where Vickers is lying on the floor and you see the alien mothership start up and start to move away. That's the bit. Whilst Vickers' fate itself is uncertain, you know he's at least been successful in getting Christopher and his son away. So to a degree it is a victory for Vickers. It's the only victory he can get now is to try and do the right thing for this alien. And during that scene it also cuts to a picture of Christopher inside the alien mothership and the sort of command interface as he's flying the alien mothership, and the camera pauses briefly on the side of character of Christopher and then pans around him slightly. And I get that, then it flashes back to Vickers, and then Christopher, and then Vickers. And I get that feeling in that moment. They're portraying the character of Christopher as ambiguous. He is promised to return in 3 years with this cure for Vickers. Yet you look at him, and it's almost as if a moment of conscience for the character, for the Prawn of Christopher. Like he's contemplating whether he actually will, whether that was just a lie.
Mm-hmm. I believe it was a lie, and I thought that at the time.
That it's intelligent manipulation of Vickers.
Yeah. And it's
I think
about
perhaps
time.
even Vickers believes it's a lie.
Yeah.
I think maybe he's accepted it, but just, okay, this is all I can do now against the people that have turned on me, is to at least assist this guy in getting away. And for him, in a way, it's not so much justice. It's the only thing he can do now that fights back against that system.
And he's accomplished something, hasn't he? He's changed something. He's done something huge. This ship has been hovering around there for many years. And he's actually done something, that's changed the local environment, the local thought process, perhaps. So, whatever he's accomplished, he's definitely changed things.
Maybe. But I also think that the character of Vickers, as he transforms into one of the aliens, would be accepted by the other aliens. I think they would take him in, because we see him sort of half turned on the floor when the mercenary colonel's about to execute him, and then obviously the other aliens come out and tear the colonel limb to limb. He shoots a couple of those aliens before they got a chance to do that, but they still attack him physically with their hands. and then the aliens back off once they've shredded him, and Vickers is just left lying there. They don't turn on Vickers.
No.
And I get the feeling that as he turns more into one of the aliens, that the other aliens would accept him. So there's a future of sorts for him there. You know, his number's not necessarily up, and I think to a degree that maybe he's accepted that.
His version of the alien, when he changes, is a clear foot shorter than the others. You know, so maybe they would turn on him for being the shortest one. I don't know.
It's Stumpy.
Yeah, oh, he's Stumpy. Here he is. The film was inspired by Blomkamp's childhood in South Africa. Interesting, the weaponry in it. You know, there's a lot of South African weapons.
Yeah, same with the armoured vehicles. I believe they're manufactured in South Africa, and some of the helicopters in the film as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on that. But multinational, the private company is supposed to be like a private military firm. And I think also that social issue of looking at governments contracting out security and military work to a private contractor instead of that remaining with the state, I think is a dangerous precedent.
Yeah. Because
it's opening to abuse and to employ people that aren't necessarily vetted or might be sadistic or that might not necessarily follow a legal code in the way it goes.
Well, we got NTW 20mm rifle, CR21 bullpup assault rifle, Neo Pup. I don't know why pup comes into it. Neo Pup.
I think pups. I know a bullpup rifle is a term for a shortened assault rifle. The British Army's SA-80 or the Rifle 5.56 is a bullpup rifle.
Oh, right.
And that is not a traditional long rifle like we think of an SLR or a 303 or a hunting rifle. The working parts of the rifle, instead of being in that midsection around the trigger and the magazine, are built into the stock of the rifle, which can reduce the overall length of the rifle. Basically, a bullpup rifle is an assault rifle, which is a fully functioning, just as powerful as assault rifle, but it's been engineered in such a way that it's shorter, that it makes use of all of its available space.
So it's more portable, perhaps?
Yeah, basically. Or if you're fighting like this in an urban environment, where you're going through doorways, windows, in and out of vehicles, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a shortened weapon, because it becomes extremely useful. But I agree with what you're saying. It is almost like an expo, like for a South African arms fair, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And that sniper rifle, the Denel NTW-20.
The real powerful one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still none of it's still not as cool as the alien weaponry though.
No,
you just hit somebody and they just shred out.
Yeah, and that really seemed influenced by Halo, those kind of weapons, and perhaps working on that, he incorporated some of these ideas.
I think there's a lot of sort of video gaming with the exoskeleton, battle suit, and like you say, some of the alien weaponry, even some of the human weaponry. It kind of crosses over to that video game genre. I think that very much when Christopher's running back to the ship and Vickers is running in the suit with Christopher, sort of basically escorting Christopher and acting as a shield and holding off Venter's men to get him there. I mean, the character of Venter, such a prick. I mean, you were as satisfied as I was when the Prawn shredded him.
Of course, yeah.
The only thing that I wasn't satisfied with is I'd like to have seen his father-in-law get a similar fate.
Yeah,
I'd like to think his father-in-law as well. We've lost it. Goes back to his office one day, closes down the file, and in there somewhere, Vickers is sitting there waiting for him with an alien gun and just does him in or chucks him out the window. I wanted to see him get his, and we don't see that.
No, he'd probably turn up in a sequel, wouldn't he?
Yeah, it's that unsatisfying feeling that the person who's quite evil and behind a lot of this hasn't got their just desserts, I think, with
he
that character.
Is the Dick Jones of this picture, probably.
Yeah.
When Kubus is tracking Vickers' location, Neill Blomkamp is seen briefly saying Vickers' coordinates. So there's a director cameo there. And this was, I think, the best fact of this film. When Vickers cuts the cake in the shape of the MNU HQ, he cuts out the section which he and Christopher blow up later in the film. So that was quite good. Some of the reviews, technically brilliant, emotionally wrenching, and I think that sums it up for me. Very difficult watch for me, Aliens are from the Andromeda galaxy, according to Blomkamp.
Isn't that the closest to us or something?
Yeah, it's the next one. So it's in the Milky Way. Jason Cope voiced every alien with a spoken role.
Okay.
Yeah, same guy. And the Prawn's homeworld has 7 moons, and is several
moons, that's right,
several times larger than Earth, which is, I think, Christopher says that, doesn't he, to his son?
There's a scene in the film, his son asks him, he says, this world only has 1 moon, how many moons does our homeworld have? And he says 7, I think. So, yeah. I mean, we talk about the accolades that you've just given him, critical response Rotten Tomatoes, 90% of the critics gave the film a positive review based on a sample of 261 with an average score of 7.8 out of 10. The website wrote off the near consensus technically brilliantly and, like you said, emotionally wrenching. District 9 has action, imagination and all the elements of a thoroughly entertaining science fiction classic. Metacritic, which assigns a weighted average out of 100 to reviews from mainstream critics, the film has received a score of 81 based on 36 reviews, so not much difference between the two, really, is there?
No.
IGN lists District 9 as 24 on a list of the 25 greatest sci-fi films ever. I don't know, do you think that's probably about fair, or do you think it probably deserves to be a little bit higher?
The trouble is with the 25 greatest sci-fi films, you're going to have technically inferior films that are a lot older but have remained in our thought process for many years. That's the thing with a classic film, isn't it? District 9, I think, as we said, technically, the CGI, the mockumentary style, so much of it is original and decent that it's hard to say this is as good as Alien. It's difficult to say that. It's difficult to compare the two, isn't it?
But the two films have a different feel.
Yeah.
District 9 is perhaps a little bit more real-worldly. I think we accept that Alien is a sort of mashup of science fiction and horror.
Yeah.
But it does have that horror theme. Whereas District 9, whilst you said it visually has those moments that could be quite graphic and disturbing, I don't feel is a horror film.
No.
I think it's a bit of self-examination of our own ugly sides as much as anything.
Exactly.
I think it, like I said, it's not scared to get its hands dirty, and I think it makes perhaps people question their own prejudices and views and exposes a lot of that. I think it's a great film.
Yeah, it is
I think it's a great film on that alone. Much before you start to put the technical aspects, the mockumentary style with all the different footage and the interviews, and you really feel like you're getting an intimate view on the characters' lives. We see the character of Vickers at his desk, and he's going showing pictures of his wife and stuff that he keeps at his desk and stuff, and you get the impression that he's a bit of a bungling bureaucrat, but you get the feeling that you do get to see an intimate view on people's lives and how they would react in these situations. The news footage feels very real worldy, and
I love news footage in movies. Ever since like Casey Wong, in RoboCop and things like that. I love it when they put these sort of newsreels in films. It's really good.
But then that world feels like that could interchange with this world. I feel like the world of District 9 probably does have video commercials for things like Nukem and stuff like that in the background, and that things like militaries and police forces, the same as in RoboCop, have gone over to private corporations and are being run on a contract basis, etc. The role of government has become less, and the role of company in running society as a whole has become more.
Well, it's great for narrative as well, isn't it? If you've got the newsreel, you kind of give the audience an idea what's going on in the expanded world, as well as the characters who are saying what's happening here.
And the sets are perfect, but then the sets were already there.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like I said, it's a visual real-world palette we're familiar with from the 1980s, and seeing those news reports and the squalor and the rioting and stuff that... Yeah, I think overall the film's ability to examine those themes and have a good look at ourselves and our own conduct itself is outstanding, before we take into account the technical aspects, the style of filmmaking, like you say, the CGI, the character portrayal. It's such a cocktail, District 9, but I think at every level, or everything it tries to do, it achieves. I think it's very good. I would probably go higher than that sort of 7.8 or 8.1 review.
Yeah, I would.
I would give District 9 a solid 9, personally.
9 is fine. Yeah, I think I'd go with 9 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a complete original, and it went under the radar. I think when it was released, no one saw this one coming as to be a big, good film as it is. Nobody saw that.
Until I actually watched it, I always got the impression that it was a very independent film. That and I always associate independent films with a poor quality of filmmaking, because I think it's not going to have the budget, it's not going to have the sets, you're not going to have the big stars.
But potentially you would have a story.
Yeah. But with this, when I watched it, I thought the production value to it was much higher than what I was expecting. It was a bit of a pleasant surprise. Yes, to me the cast were relative unknowns, but I still thought the acting in it is fine, and I followed that. You can argue the set is cheap because it's an existing location and it's perfect for what they wanted. They already had that on site. But then when you look at things like the mockumentary news and the alien CGI and the mothership hanging over, that mothership would you know, that's to me is up there of Independence Day standards, possibly even better, I think, in its visual palette. It looks like it's been hanging there for 20 years.
Yeah.
There's sort of ropes and bits hanging off it, and it looks a bit shambolic and a bit run down. Yeah, I think the production value on it is very good, and I was pleasantly surprised going into expecting to find an independent movie and come out thinking, well, actually, this is really good stuff. They've done a great job on this. At the end of the film, it is a bit of an action cliche, isn't it? It does kind of go into a bit of a visual effects blur with the suit and the battle between the mercenaries and the simple premise that he's just trying to get this one alien away. But I think by that part, that third act of the film, you're ready for that and you deserve it. Because you've gone through this quite gruelling ride to get to this stage, and you do want a bit of payback.
And it does move quite fast-paced, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think it fits in fine. A lot of people have been critical of that, saying that that's a deterioration of the standard of the film. I disagree. I think by that stage of the film, you deserve that reward, and you want a bit of a Big Mac moment in the movie.
Because you've invested in the characters.
Yeah.
Haven't you? Do you think there wasn't much expectation because of Neill Blomkamp, like a video game kind of movie director? Nobody really saw him coming.
I think this was completely wrong-footed. A lot of people. I mean, a lot of the promotion around this was based around some of the signs and imagery we see in the movie, like the red circular thing with a bar across the middle with an alien inside it, and no non-humans, human-only bus stop, human-only this, no non-humans, no humans beyond this point, and this, that, and the other. A lot of the promotion around the film was based on these signs put up in cinemas and on the side of buses and
skyscrapers in Hong Kong, and
in billboards and bus stops and on the side of libraries, and this kind of environment. And it was very vague as to what you were getting, and it almost looked like the advertising budget was low, that it was all on this one theme. But I think it was quite clever.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
You know,
and I think it shows the vision of Peter Jackson that he was blown away by this guy and said, "Look, here's the money. Whatever you're going to do, I trust you. Put something out."
So we're considering that I think it has been successful and it is a good film, and the takings were much higher than the cost. Where is the sequel?
Who knows?
And where is that extended? Like you said, we got like Chappie. Where is this Neill Blomkamp's film career really expanded and taken off?
Yeah, maybe it's difficult, being a South African film director. Maybe, but then
was District 9 too quiet about itself?
Yeah, but I mean, with the snowball effect of critical acclaim, you'd expect.
But that doesn't always rate.
No, it doesn't, does it?
I mean, we looked recently. What was it? Empire's list of top 50 TV shows or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I was quite smug about the fact that Battlestar came in higher than Game of Thrones. Yet millions. Game of Thrones, Game of Prawns, Game of Thrones. Yet millions more people will have seen Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones has been commercially more successful. Battlestar got 4 seasons. I believe Game of Thrones is on about the 7th. I may be wrong.
Yeah, you're right. The 7th comes out next year. Yeah.
And everyone, you got to watch it, you got to watch it, you got to watch it. Yet for the critical reviews, they still placed Battlestar on that list the next highest one up from Game of Thrones, an acknowledgement that Battlestar was a better show. But it didn't have that commercial success, and people didn't watch it for some reason. And to me, District 9 feels like it's in that category. It didn't have that mainstream success, but it would be higher on a list in terms of how good it actually is, as opposed to films that were more successful underneath it. But
I mean, your phrase you use, like dirty little secret kind of thing,
Yeah.
But this is bigger than that, isn't it?
I don't know if it is. I mean, I look at it and think it deserves to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it ticks so many right boxes, and it's quite visionary. It's quite original.
I can see it. Like the problem is the audience. I could sit down and watch this with my girlfriend, and she would enjoy it. But it's difficult to see who would actually sit down and watch it. I mean, a politics student, I'm sure it'd be relevant and interesting, but. Could you get you're not going to watch it with your family? Who's going to go out and watch it? That's the problem, and it is a bit awkward to watch him.
You think it's not a social film?
Maybe it's just me.
Maybe it's the film you have to have your own intimate moment, just sit and watch it.
Yeah, I agree with that. If it's on Film 4, which it has been quite a lot recently, I think you could sit down and watch it on.
I downloaded it from iTunes prior to this, so I could have a rewatch, and I just rewatched it on my iPod Touch by myself. Slumped out on the sofa with my headphones on, so it wasn't a family viewing, it was very much me and the film. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's not a film you can have on with your child. It is probably a little bit too graphic, so I wouldn't watch it, put it on the DVD or on the telly, bearing that in mind. But I think it is a film that me and the missus would sit down and watch together and enjoy.
Well, body count is 21 MNU men killed.
Should we go?
15 Nigerians and 3 aliens. Only 3 aliens die.
Yeah, but I'm kind of with the aliens on
this.
No,
yeah. So.
The Nigerians, to me, they're kind of generic bad guys in this film. I don't know it's necessarily a fair portrayal of Nigerians, but I cheer on every one of those MNU mercenaries who gets killed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just such an awful bunch.
Well,
should we make this episode red band?
Yep.
How many times does the expression "fook" get used, or "fook" as we know is "fuck"? It's South African fuck.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Can you get away with it by using that "fook"?
Well, I don't know, like the bit where he's trying to evict Christopher and his son phrases like, "Is this your fucking little fucking rant out here?" And all the rest of it when he's talking to Christopher.
Yeah.
He's quite, you know what I mean?
Is it as bad as feck? You know, is it similar sort of
or
thing?
frack, or I don't know. Is that what South Africans would use? Would that just be their pronunciation of that?
Perhaps it would be
generic term.
Yeah, I mean it's a rated R the film, so it's 18 in Britain. I take it.
I guess so. Yeah.
So I guess they could use the regular word anyway. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, perhaps that's just the way that they would pronounce it, and the differences. I don't know.
Well, this was released through TriStar Pictures.
Mm.
Now, you remember Columbia, TriStar, they've changed a number of times. This was their first Oscar nomination since 1997's As Good As It Gets.
Okay.
So, you know, that company was probably really boosted by this movie.
Mm. Yeah, possibly. Well, have we got anything else on District 9?
That's it. I mean, I'd just recommend people go and have a look at it, you know, and...
Yeah, it's a rewarding viewing, I think, and by the time the third act, the action sequences in it, I think you've earned it.
Yeah.
It's not a popcorn explosion fest movie, but by the time the film gets more to that stage, I think it's a valid reward for enduring it, but I think it's a great film all round.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and perhaps it does deserve to have that slightly higher profile. And like I said, you know, where's Neill Blomkamp now?
And potentially, we don't need a sequel.
More from this talent?
Yeah.
No, I don't think we need a sequel. I think it ends fine, and I don't know where it can go from a sequel. I think there's a tragedy in the end of the film, as well as a happiness at the end of the film. And I think that's part of the emotional wrench of District 9, that you're invested in both. And I think, to a degree, you're fed by both. And I don't think it needs a sequel. But what I would like to see is from Blomkamp and the crews that made this movie and the actors in this movie going on, because I think from what they gave us on District 9 they deserve to have more success with more films, and I'd like to see more of what they do, because I think it's a wonderful movie and it should be more mainstream, and I think, you know, we'll see.
It's better than Avatar.
Well, that's not hard, is it?
No.
But there you go. Okay, let's get on to local stuff.
Okay.
I've only got one. It's not really a humorous story, but it was one that caught my attention overnight browsing online. This one's from the BBC Radio Norfolk website. It was published on the 29th of August 2016. Brancaster surveyed as space-age rocket launching site. A popular tourist destination in North Norfolk was surveyed 50 years ago as a potential rocket launching site, declassified documents show. Royal Aircraft Establishment officials visited the county in 1966 to survey sites around Brancaster. The flat vista was seen as an ideal for rocket launches as it gave a clear run to the polar region. A research base was already set up on the Isle of Wight when Norfolk's bid to host Britain's space age was made. Good job that asteroid didn't come and hit it that we talked about before, isn't it? The county was considered because it was also close to sources of personnel, materials and engineering skills. North Norfolk appears much more attractive technically. It would permit the launching of polar satellites, the Royal Aircraft Establishment report said. Logistically, it is very satisfactory as personnel and equipment could be obtained quickly and a huge engineering and technical complex in southern England is close at hand. Coastal Norfolk in 1966 was seen as remote, would not attract objections, and had a military infrastructure left over from the Second World War. It would have none of the objections made to other sites, and it would have technical and financial advantages, the report said. No site has been selected, but there were several north of the coastal road that would appear adequate. Ideally, the site should be within 5 miles of a disused airfield with existing buildings. All that would be required in these circumstances would be the construction of a launch area on the coastline, and all other operations could be conducted from other sites linked together by microwave and hard wire. The Black Arrow rocket was eventually chosen as the ideal vehicle to carry satellites. Space Station Norfolk on BBC Radio Norfolk, Monday 6 p.m. and for 30 days on the BBC iPlayer. If people want to go and have a listen to this.
That's good.
Yeah, so there's an actual radio programme out there about that. Well, what do we think to that then? Our own Norfolk, Nelson's County, just across the county lines here, could have been Britain's spaceport.
It makes sense. I mean, what they were saying about resources, I mean, when you look at the North Sea and oil rigs and things like that, there are engineering capabilities out there. Obviously, it's very flat around there, perfect for a launch site. I think it probably would have been a
remote open field, so if you get a rocket failure, you're not going to wipe out half a town or... Something like that. Brancaster. I mean, I was looking at some pictures of Brancaster last night online and thinking about a bit about this news story. Yeah, talk about an open plain. All it was basically a load of open scrubland with one wooden bench in the middle of it. So if you were the one person unfortunate enough to be sat on that wooden bench when something goes wrong. Clear run to the polar regions. Well, I suppose so. If you think about it, once you get out and that sort of, I don't know, like a peninsula past the Wash, onto the Norfolk coast, if you're going directly north, you've got nothing to the North Pole but sea.
Yeah, that's right.
You're going to skirt the Norwegian and European coasts and what have you, but I guess you have got an overflight, no political countries in the way between you and putting a satellite into polar orbit.
It's interesting what they were saying that the Isle of Wight was chosen as our Cape Canaveral or whatever it was. I've never been there myself. Have you been there, Isle of Wight?
No.
No, I've never been there. I was jealous at school because a lot of kids went, but my mum and dad didn't pay for my trip, and they went.
Was that Project Week?
No, this was in Basildon when I was a younger student down there, and they went to some place called Black Gang Chine or something like that, which is like a theme park on the Isle of Wight. But I never got to go with them. So
no, I haven't been to the Isle of Wight. Been to the Norfolk coast many times. Britain's space programme, the Black Arrow rocket was used to put a satellite into orbit. It's still up there today. I believe it was launched from Woomera in Australia, though. We had a facility there at the time. I believe that satellite was launched either late. I don't know the technical details off the top of my head, but it was in the late 60s or late 70s. If you go to the National Space Centre at Leicester, they've got a whole thing on it. Mm-hmm. And I believe that was launched. I believe it's still up there today. I believe it wasn't switched off until the early 90s, so it was operating for over 30 years, but it's still up there and today. So Britain did independently put at least one satellite into orbit.
Yeah.
On the Quiet, we have more than one up there now, but they've all been launched by other space agencies on our behalf. Yeah, exactly, as surveillance and communication satellites and stuff. But I think that's fascinating. I think there's a time that Britain was still technologically looking forward. I mean, things like Concorde and jet engines and computers and stuff. Britain was still a very technologically advanced country and was looking forward to push into that brave new world. It was Dan Dare stuff, wasn't it? And, rocket base on the north coast.
Well, and we kind of, slowed down, haven't we, in that respect?
Yeah, I think so, maybe, and I think that's a shame in a way.
And what does he say about humanity in a way? That we've kind of shrugged our shoulders and said, well, that's probably about as good as we can get it,
Yeah, we kind of washed our hands of it and let it go to other countries and other associations. I do think the idea of it being remote and that was, they were kind of thinking even back then in the 60s that, we're going to get protesters and objections. We see the same thing today. If you want to stick up a wind turbine or you're considering fracking somewhere underground or something, all of a sudden there's petitions and all the rest of it, Even back then in the 60s they were thinking about the ramifications of having a rocket base in Norfolk.
Brancaster, is it a popular place, isn't it, now to go with?
I don't know, like I said, like the pictures I looked at it online, it does look really sparse and really rural, just open flat plains for miles. So
I know a lot of people walk their dogs or go up there, flying kites and things like that. So.
Yeah, I guess it'd be sort of suitable for that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there you go. We could have potentially had the equivalent of the Kennedy Space Centre up the road there, sandwiched between Hunstanton and Great Yarmouth, but never quite got it.
Well, can you remember before Disneyland Paris, they were thinking about building Disneyland in the Thames estuary? sort of up that area, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that never came either, unfortunately, you know. So.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily going to be a bid you were going to win. I mean, you could either have Paris with the Eiffel Tower as a backdrop, or you could stick it in the middle of a river.
Yeah, or Canvey Island.
Yeah, we didn't really promote that as well as we could.
Didn't.
I think I can understand why that didn't work on a broader level. But you mean I haven't got any other local news? What, you got some werewolf from Hull or something?
Yeah, to Hull and back. It's not really a local news, but
no, but it's in that vein.
Yeah, it's kind of cryptozoology. So this was as recent as August the 29th.
Okay.
This year, Hull Daily Mail. It came from. A woman says she ran into a Hull werewolf, Old Stinker.
Hey?
Old Stinker is the name. I think we mentioned Old Stinker before.
Hull has an official werewolf.
Yeah, and apparently he's been sighted for like over 60 years, so this legend continues. Gemma Waller, an animal rescue worker, so she knows her onions really, was driving through Hulsham when she saw the legendary creature, 8 foot, half man, half dog. She was with 2 friends who reported the beast was on all fours and began to stand on 2. It looked like a big dog, probably bigger than my car, but had a human face. I'm getting visions of body snatchers here. It had a cream and grey fur, often known locally as the Beast of Barnston Drain. Interesting that she had a couple of people in the car with her, so it weren't just like a, you know...
are the other people sort of testament to this? Will they validate what she says? You know, will they agree with her?
They agree with her, yeah. There's a longer story if you go onto the Hull Daily Mail if you want to have a read about it. But, you know, these beasts and sightings are the Beast of Bodmin Moor, the Black Shuck we talked about, but this is a werewolf with a human face, you know.
Well, how do you know it's a werewolf?
Well, what is a werewolf? Yeah, you're lycanthrope. I mean, okay, so it's a dog with a human head, basically, but very tall.
8 foot. Somebody would notice that.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Well, there have been numerous sightings in the last year or so.
And this is what goes back over 60 years, is it?
Yeah, Old Stinker they call him.
Well, yeah, he's even got his own nickname.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought you'd see more of it. I don't know.
Maybe it's the cycle of the moon.
You think?
No. I mean, is there an 8 foot werewolf stalking people in Hull or Hulsham?
I don't know. I used to work with someone from Hull who hated Hull.
Yeah.
They came from Hull, and they used to say the best thing about Hull was the road out of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, to Hull and back.
Maybe Old Stinker's trying to get out.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to offer any social commentary on Hull.
Yeah.
An 8 foot monster though, I'd have thought that would have been seen much more often. And
yeah, I mean, when you think about that missing lynx recently from was it a zoo in Dartmoor or somewhere like that, and it was on the run for a couple of weeks, but they managed to catch it.
I will just say when Mark says missing lynx, he means lynx L-Y-N.
Yeah, not
L-I-N-K-S. There isn't a whole posse of California men running around Dartmoor, Neanderthals or something. But yeah, I mean, fascinating all that sort of stuff, isn't it? Local legends and local cryptozoology. A little bit sceptical. If it's a well-known local legend, somebody could have basically hired out a Chewy suit from the local joke shop and decided to stand on the side of the road for a bit of a gag. I've often thought I'd like to pull a spoof.
Yeah.
Like a publicity thing, like a fake UFO or something. Like put a balloon up with some flashing road lights and see how many people report it as something extraterrestrial.
Well, we used to do something similar down.
I used to believe in crop circles until I saw one myself.
And then when you tried to make one yourself...
No, I never tried to make one.
They just turn up to be crab circles, to be honest.
No, we'd been down in Essex to some shopping centre, one of the ones on the side of the motorways, and we were driving back there, and there was like a crop field on a bank on the side of the motorway, and we saw a crop circle there driving back, but it wasn't like some sort of, stylographs type, geometric pattern that somebody could do using a calculator and a slide rule and some ropes set to certain lengths. Somebody had done a crop circle of a pig's face. It was like a round pig's face with a couple of ears and a round snout on it and a couple of eyes and stuff. So, obviously not extraterrestrial in origin. Impressive that they'd done it. It looked the part, but yeah. I don't know. A lot of these things can be dispelled. I mean, we can't be beyond this being somebody having a bit of a local joke.
That's true, yeah, it could be. I mean, even people who've hit a fox or something, they believe it's a lot bigger than it is, just because of the shock in the actual incident when it happens.
Yeah, it's velocity. I mean, I hit a deer once and killed a deer, and that was quite a fucking clout on the front of my vehicle. Mm-hmm. And that was one of these sort of munchjack things. It didn't have like massive moose antlers or anything like that on it. It was only that was at the time I was working at Newmarket. And I was driving down the Exton Road between where the Turner's yard is and the other end of Studman's.
Yep.
And there's a lot of hedgerows and trees on the side of the road, and it literally bounded out of the hedgerow in the ditch in front of my car and smacked in front of my car, caught its head and knocked it off to the side. I pulled over a few yards up the road and went back to it, sort of a few kicks out of his back legs, and that was it. It was gone. So I just dragged it off.
Oh, so it was dead, or?
It was. I think it was like a nervous twitch thing. I don't know if it's dead or not, actually. I just
Twitches.
I dragged it by its hooves into the ditch, got back in my car, and thought, I'm already late for work. I better get going. I left it there.
Someone had some venison then that night.
Yeah, but I mean, that wasn't that big an animal, but the clout it made when I hit it, I mean, you're going to know about it. So, I don't know.
Something we used to do down 10 Mile Bank, as you know, it's quite barren out there.
Yeah.
When we were... Like, we had one of those big scythes that Death would carry. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And...
why am I thinking of Bill and Ted's Death?
Yeah. But we would run across the riverbank, and there's the road.
Yeah.
And we would wait for a car to come and then follow our friend with a scythe and chase him over the riverbank.
We got caught like that once at Grunty Fen.
Yeah.
Yeah. We it was pitch black about 1 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock at night, something like that. It was me and a couple of mates in his old Fiesta, and we were just kind of barrying around. It was the days, back in your late teens and stuff. I used to do that sort of thing. And we were driving through Grunty Fen, and it really was pitch black, but there was just a slight outline of things you could just make out against the clouds and stuff on the horizon. And we went past this completely barren and empty farmer's field, and then all of a sudden in the middle of this farmer's field there was like a cloaked figure. And my mate was only like doing 20 miles an hour, and we were like, oh, look at that, all pointing at this thing. And we could see like this cloaked figure standing there, sort of 6 to 7 foot tall, but about 40 feet away. And my mate was like, fuck, he puts his foot down, so we go from like 30 mile an hour off to 60, like, get out of there. Pull up the road, have a bit of chat. I was a bit shocked and all the rest of it. Oh God, what was that? Finally got the Dutch courage to go back, and we went back there, and it was still standing there, like in the mist. It was like some out of an Iron Maiden video. It really was quite eerie to look at it, and the light and the mist and stuff in this field. I thought, well, go out and have a look at it. Go on, no, you go. People couldn't get out and look at it. Eventually got the courage for a couple of us to get out, and it didn't move. I don't know what we thought. Expect this thing to do, to walk towards us or walk away or something, or ethereally drift across the fens on the mist or so. I don't know quite what we were expecting. If we walked towards it, it was a scarecrow with an old overcoat on it. That's all it was. But in that moment, in that visual, it was so unclear and it was so freaky.
Yeah.
And I remember as well going down the fens when we were kids with air rifles, sort of mucking about, sort of shooting things, and they had tin cans and stuff down the droves and this, that and the other. And that was dusk one night, and that was quite an eerie sort of fen night. A night you'd expect to see the fen cougar prowling around, or old black shuck terrorising the droves and all the rest of it. And we saw this glowing round object in the middle of a field, and it looked like the field had been burnt around it. And at a distance, we were so convinced this thing was a meteorite. And we were like, oh, cool, we found a meteorite, And this is before the days of mobile phones and stuff, so we couldn't just take a photograph and be on Facebook with our meteorite in 5 minutes. This is before that kind of world existed. So again, we all sat there sort of considered, let's go up close and have a look at it. Let's go, So we finally got the stomach up and went close to have a look at this meteorite. And of course, it was just a farmer's bonfire. When we got close to it, there's all like Coke cans and bits of wood and stuff in it. But it looked so effective and so round at a distance. Yeah. And it looked like it had scorched the ground around it. So I think sometimes people do see things and they're convinced that what they've seen is genuine, even when it's closer examination, it's not.
And when driving at night around here, the population is so small that if you see something like a fire, you think, well, there's nobody around. How is that possible? So you do create different theories.
But I think that's on a younger mind. I think today, when it's something like that, I start thinking rationally. Well, could it perhaps have been lightning on dry vegetation or something? I'm always looking for a logical or a reasonable explanation as to why you're seeing what you're seeing. I don't necessarily think of something a bit further.
And this is true about Dave. I think that you are. If we were going searching for old Stinker, he would come up with a rational situation and say, look, it's probably this, probably. But my mind would probably be working overtime saying, hang on, no, it's real, it's definitely real.
It's like Scooby-Doo. You get disappointed when it turns out it's the janitor when we unmask him after bundling him.
It is.
Scooby-Doo, there's the janitor and Stilts under. But you were saying you used to sort of stage some sort of mock battle with death down there.
Yeah, or just chase someone with a scythe, and the car would go past and kind of look and think, what the bloody hell was that?
I mean, you could really take that, can you? Get a chainsaw or something?
Yeah, just sort of a hockey mask,
Jason or Mike Myers or something like that.
Yeah, we used to play a game, Chucky. Remember the Child's Play doll?
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to go camping and say, I think I just saw a little kid running around the barn or something like that. Sort of scare each other.
Yeah.
But great days. And, out there on the fen, you never know. You might well see something out there one day.
Oh, you'll certainly see some things. I mean, I've seen some things down there, but things that I've always been able to dispel as something not quite as exciting as what I thought it was originally.
Dogging or something like that. Yeah.
I have seen that a time or two, but again, there's a rational explanation.
Yeah, definitely rational explanation.
But yeah, we ain't really got much more this episode, then, have we?
That's about it, really. So the next one, I mean, we don't know exactly what we're going to cover, do we?
34, another fortnight's time, yeah. It's been nice to get to South Africa, I think, with a showcase.
Something different, definitely different.
Definitely different, yeah. So let's get out of here.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Thanks to Stephen Waterhouse for a review. It was nice to get a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, and I believe we've got a few other audio clips there from listeners, haven't we? So
yeah, bits and pieces. We'll catch you again in a fortnight. Take care.
Take care.